Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming back and welcome back. Thank you for being so on time for this first International Gender and Cybersecurity Forum. I hope you have enough time for lunch. Now we have two very interesting panels, as we said in the morning. The first one is about the importance of the research on gender and cybersecurity and what we can do from the educational industry, the associations, and the private sector. We're going to talk about what this situation is like now in terms of gender and cybersecurity and the types of solutions the technological, educational, associational industries can propose. Because the technologies and the industries are still dominated by men, and the salary divide will reach 1.20 million people in 2020. So this panel is moderated by Carmen González Guinda. She's a member of parliament in the Gender Equality Commission at the Spanish Parliament. First of all, good afternoon to you all, and thank you for coming to this forum. It is for me a real pleasure and an honor to be here today with this panel, with these speakers, talking about this fascinating topic, something that affects us all, how the new technologies, the ICTs, have come to stay. This poses us with many important challenges. Many of the jobs we will be filling in the future will be related to the field of technologies, but the inequalities of our world in the digital world are now existing in the world of technologies. So this panel is entitled The Importance of the Gender Perspective in the Technological and Cybersecurity Fields. First of all, I like to talk about the background of our speakers. It will take me a while because they have very long and extensive experience, but I prefer to talk about their background now, and then it will be more dynamic. So first of all, there is María Luisa Melo, Public Affairs and Communication Director at the company Huawei. María Luisa has a degree in journalism from the Complutense University in Madrid, sociology at the Distance Learning University. She has a master's in business administration and a postgraduate degree in other fields. She has worked in corporate communication for IBM, in different media, Radio Nacional, Onda Cero, Computer World, PC Actual, and she got the Ameti Journalism Award in 2006. She belongs to the Marca España Committee and is the president of the Innovation Committee of the Marca España Association. Now we'll introduce Ángel de Miguel Casas. He's the current president of the School Council of the State, which is a participation body of the associations and institutions that work in the educational sector. He has a degree in education sciences in the University of Barcelona and a degree in teaching at the University of Soria, and he belongs to the national body of teachers. He has been a professor at the UNED University. He has occupied many positions in the public administration in several provinces and institutions and has taught many courses to senior executives. Giovanna Calderón has a degree in information sciences. Sorry, the speaker corrects herself. She's the president for the Women for Dialogue and Education Association. She has a degree in communication sciences from Madrid University, the teaching course. She got an award on Noble Causes and Solidarity Award by the Grupo Posada and El Mundo Diplomático, and she's been a candidate for the list of top 100 leading women in the third sector in Spain. Women for Dialogue and Education is a not-for-profit association working in female associationism in Spain with the purpose of empowering women through education by trying to promote equality and interaction with other cultures. So you interact with associations in Africa, America, and other countries in Europe. It's been rewarded as a public utility association by the Spanish government and is working with many other associations that work in the field of women empowerment in Spain. And finally, we have Fernando Rey, Councillor, Regional Minister for Education, and has a PhD. Well, he's a Regional Minister for Education at the Government of Castilla and León and has a PhD. He was the author of the Autonomous Statute for the region of Castilla and León, and he has received many awards. I have a long list, but I'm not going to read them out. I just name a few. He had the best Tomás y Valiente Award and the best excerpt at the university degree. And he has published many papers: The Right Not to Be Discriminated for Gender Reasons and Prostitution and Law. 2 books I was referring to. Not Discrimination on the grounds of racial or ethnical origin, and he's the president of several associations in Castilla and León. First of all, I'd say that it is true that the world of the new technologies has brought about long series of opportunities, but it's also true that the roles in the analog world have also been reproduced in the digital world, in the world of the new technologies, in what has been called the digital divide. This divide that manifests itself not just in the access to the technologies, but also because given the geographical location, and especially in this region, because it's a very rural region and very large, we can also talk about the rural divide and the generational divide, the difference in access between the youth and the old people, and also the migrational divide or the ethnical divide. But we can also talk, and let's focus upon the gender divide. And now I'll give the floor to Maria Luisa, because I think we have to talk about the not just the difference between men and women in their access to the new technologies, but also in the positions they occupy in the companies. 20-something% of the technological degrees are studied by women, and something a similar percentage of them work in technological companies, but only 10% of them work in senior executive positions, and you are part of that 10%. Thank you very much to INCIBE and the OAS for giving me the opportunity and the privilege to be here today. In my personal behalf and on behalf of Huawei, I am delighted to be participating in this forum. So this morning we saw many data, many percentages, many figures that corroborate what you were saying. It is true that we account for the majority of the students in universities. We study degrees, we study diplomas, but the percentage of women who study or who complete technological degrees in the university is quite small. It's 28%. In ICT, according to the latest data by Ametic, in Spain it's 427,000 job positions, out of which only 19% are occupied by women. So less than 1/4 Less than 25% of all the positions in the ICT industry are occupied by women. So it is true that we still have a long way to go. I personally think that this is a task that we have to carry out together, as we saw in the morning. Not only the public sector, but also, as my colleagues will say later, the private sector, the society as a whole, and even in the social field, in the family field, we all have to act together. And I will explain what I mean with this. I have clear examples or clear recommendations that we can give to stimulate early vocation in children, in girls, among girls. According to a Microsoft study, there is a window of opportunity that is quite narrow between 11 and 15 years of age. So within that age range, it's when girls decide what they want to study, and it's up to us to stimulate or to foster that they study technological degrees. So it is key for us to promote their studying of a technological degree and then to encourage them to pursue it professionally, so that we can organize courses and talks and use models, role models, women who have been successful in pursuing a technological career. We have seen examples in the morning, and they can be inspirational. Women who work here in Spain, but also abroad, with a lot of success. It is important for girls to receive that input. And I'd like to stress the social factor, the family factor. I truly believe that that type of talks and contents can not only be received by girls, but also by their parents, their families as a whole, because the stimulus that a girl is receiving is not only received through the school or the high school, but also through the family. By reading documentations, when I was reading documentation to prepare myself for this panel, I was quite surprised to learn that in some occasions, girls received through their families the message that the technical degrees or the new technologies degrees are quite long and take long to complete. And then the professional opportunities in the case of men are better, salaries are also better. So it is something that we all must do. The public sector, the private sector have to encourage the use of robotics courses, the 3D courses, yes, but a lot needs to be done too. And I want to give you very concrete examples of projects that we have carried out in Huawei, in my company. And I want to stress that Huawei is one of the companies that has recently signed a cooperation agreement for cybersecurity with INCIBE. And that partnership is the first one signed by Huawei in Europe and the second globally. So it was the first one in Spain, and it was with INCIBE. So I want to really stress the importance and the differential value that Spain is putting or placing into this public and private partnership with this example I've just given. But going back to creating opportunities to education, I want to show you the example of one of the projects that I learned about that I organized when I joined the company, and it's been very successful and proven to be very satisfactory for us. In Huawei, we defined a social strategy called Creating Opportunities Through Education, and within that strategy, the first project in Spain was the Smart Bus. The Smart Bus was a bus equipped with Huawei technology to train children between 10 and 13 years of age on the use of new technologies in a responsible and safe way. It was a long months of work with trainers, with teachers. The training lasted 40 minutes, and not only the children, but also the teachers and the parents were invited to learn. The truth is, the feedback we got through all those months by those teachers, those trainers, those children was very useful for us, because we realized that some of those children were suffering or were experiencing cyberbullying and cyber attacks and sexting. So we were telling them, be careful not to disclose the geographical location where you are. Be careful with your digital identity. And that's how we discovered many of the things that were going on 5 years ago. And we were present throughout Spain. Those were specific cases, and it was a satisfaction for us to hear a mother and a father say to us, at last I have understood my kid and how to behave, how to act at home, because sometimes I lack the resources, the recommendations, the ways to help him or her. So we are very happy to bring about this kind of initiatives, although we still have a long way to go. Thank you. Yes, in fact, we still have a long way to go. What can we do in the field of education to try and educate, bringing up, demolishing the barriers girls can feel when choosing technological careers, and in order to prevent cyberbullying through the internet and the social media, because it's something that really concerns us, that worries us as parents and teachers. So please, Fernando and Ángel. So thank you. Yes, it's a pleasure for me to be here today to talk about these things that concern us. And I'd like to thank the INCIBE for giving me the opportunity to be here today with you. The INCIBE has been at the spotlight in recent days because of the things they've done in the aftermath of the cyber attack, the WannaCry virus. I'm looking at my smartphone because I have written something here, like a script for my intervention. I'm not writing WhatsApps, I can assure you. Well, I wish it was a WhatsApp, because I know this is a very tricky time after lunch. So I have written to myself 3 ideas. The first one, a month ago, the PISA report was presented, and it talked about the difference between boys and girls. You know that the PISA test is done in 79 countries in the world to both boys and girls at the end of the secondary school. So it's a report that is really interesting. And regarding the gender bias, the satisfaction level of girls is quite lower compared to the one of the boys in all countries. So this is a systematic phenomenon. Women, the school girls, are less happy because they feel the pressure to perform the roles they have been allocated. In the case of boys, they have specific roles they have to fulfill that have another type of pressure associated with them. So the PISA report shows something that is worrying, but then, of course, is the gender divide. But then we have the extreme internauts. 1 out of 4 children, boys and girls together, 1 out of 4 children spend 6 hours a day before a screen. So this is really preoccupying. 70% of all these kids feel at a loss if they don't have a Wi-Fi network. So this is really pointing out that we have a serious problem because we have to educate them in the use of the technologies. But let's go back to the gender difference. Many people think that the equality is something that has already been obtained. Some people even deny there is a problem, and some other people even think when confronted with the data, they don't feel at ease. They feel unoffended because they think, oh, they are all the time talking about the gender inequality, the feminists, you're persistent. So let me remind you that there are many discrimination scenarios and very rooted causes for discrimination because prejudices are there, and prejudices lead to discrimination in the society. The institutions, the administration work together, but we remove the symptoms of the gender discrimination, but not the root causes, the factory of the discrimination, the stereotypes, the negative stereotypes and the prejudices, because they are still in good shape. So what we call the micro chauvinism, because discrimination change and they become politically correct and socially presentable. So we see what will happen in the future, but equality is not something that will fall because of its own weight. Of course, women now do not have the same situation our mothers or grandmothers lived, but it is true that equality is not something that we can take for granted. It is something that we have to conquer, because the social reality is that those in a position of force will use it and will exploit it. So someone in a privileged position will not discard it, will not drop it, will not let it go. So that's why we have to keep on fighting. In Castilla and León, this region, equality, when coming to choose a university degree, well, Bankia has submitted a report created or drafted by Miguel Navarro, Basque economy professor, and in the report they say that 50.4% of all the students in Spain are women, but in Castilla and León it's only 44%. In Castilla and León we have many students who choose vocational training than in other regions. And most of them choose the sexist studies, for example, sociocultural services or fashion or services for the community. And the boys go for the most technical ones, the most industrial ones. For example, I have the data here. For IT and communications, girls account for 13.8% out of 3,660 students that choose IT, communication, development of multi-platform applications, web applications, desktop IT. As I was saying, there are 3,660 students, and the women account for 512. So Internet 4.0, out of 3,825 students, but only 143 of them are women, so it's only 3%. So when we talk about these topics, we say, yes, the education is a key factor, but this is the education, this is what is going on. So we have our educational system that is not discriminating per se. I am sure that no classroom in our community shows discrimination, or nobody tells the girls, why, if you're a girl, do you want to study something related to cybersecurity or technology? No, nobody's doing it, but yet the girls are still choosing stereotyping studies, and this is something invisible. If we oppose the traditional recipes, if we use as a solution only the traditional recipes, we won't be able to defeat it. We won't be able to balance the situation, because this is showing that this society is chauvinist and machist. Regarding the cybersecurity, well, in our universities in Spain, the situation is the same as in the vocational training. We have many many boys that choose engineering degrees, and the social services studies are for the girls. In Castilla and León, there are 5,000 new vacancies in the university every year, and most of the girls choose educational degrees. They don't have many possibilities to work as educators in the future. And then law, business administration are the top three, together with education are the top three choices of the girls. So as you were saying, it seems like in the educational world we have to come up with solutions. It's up to us, but so we have something to do. But then we have to talk about cyber harassment and cyber bullying, and that is really a real problem, and we haven't even been able to quantify it. This year we're going to commission a study to the Department of Criminology, a specialized Department of Criminology, and I hope INCIBE will support it too. We have to work together with INCIBE. So this study will try to analyze how much cyberbullying there is in general, and how much is addressed towards girls. We have an observatory of cyberbullying in Castilla and León. We've had it for 10 years, but we haven't found the root causes. For example, extreme shyness, or ethnicity, or physical appearance. We haven't really quantified it. So we have a serious problem that we have to tackle. Someone said that the old fortresses were broken with the advancement of the infantry, but I think the same applies to the old world with the emergence of the internet. So these are daily problems. This is what I want to say now, and now I'll leave time for the debate.
Fernando, you have just mentioned chauvinism. I think it is very important at the school, but also businesses connected to ICT. It is said that the employer usually is white and young, and to try to beat not diversity. That is from the perspective that diversity is generating talent. That is the pathway businesses should follow. However, these chauvinist attitudes should turn into more flexibility towards women. Don't you think that the role of woman is installed in those social tasks when faced by equality? We can talk about micro chauvinist attitudes that you mentioned. It is your turn, Ángel, President of the State School committee. You have contact with many students, families, associations. Yes, I am president of the council. I have only been so for 6 months, so I will just tell you about my previous experience when I was a counselor or also an education inspector and as a father as well. I want to tell you a little bit about my experience, what I have experienced, because many important things have been said. Something has been said about the divide, employability per gender, also training activity, guidelines that are given or training given to kids, girls and boys from an implicit or explicit viewpoint. Because if we put all that together with what gathers us here, that is the management of new technologies, I think that new technologies, as the chairwoman mentioned, they are here to stay. We have to take them as what they are. They are an opportunity, a new opportunity, of course, that sometimes overcomes the institutions because it goes further or it moves much faster than the education, than the system, the training system. And this has to be taken from a point of view of prevention, to use in a reasonable way the new technologies. So, on the one hand, I think that the battle and the interest in training, the skills applied and competencies to new technologies as life itself, I think at the last levels of primary education and beginning of secondary education, there is a good breaking down, and I do not think the problem lies there, whether girls and boys have a preference or they handle easier new technologies. I think altogether they develop certain competencies and skills that is enough and compatible with the acquisition of other competencies. As the Regional Minister for Education mentioned, and I agree with him, there is a different guidance towards higher education and also mid-schools. For 5 years, I was General Director for Vocational Training, and our aim to increase the number of students in vocational training was always there, because we must mention and say out loud that the number for 2020 in Spain for the universities has already been reached, but what still has to be reached is the diversification of new jobs that will be demanded in the years to come. There were many businessmen and women the other day when I attended the presentation of the white paper of businessmen with the title Education Matters, and they manifest already the need of businessmen, the concern they have, because as we exit the crisis, there may be many university students that have studied something that does not have any possibility of employability, and the part of the pyramid that should be built in Spain, which training, let's say, is not in the form of a flat area, but rather a pyramid in which the bottom layer would develop high education, mid-education, but different from a university. We know that vocational training is equivalent in Riga with some of the university levels. In that regard, we have advanced and we have made headway. However, I agree with the regional minister for education that is not enough. There are many jobs that are still not being covered. There is a tradition as well The first of the speakers mentioned that well, of course, the university studies may take too long. My two girls and one boy studied the same telecommunications, and it's true that the development of life will be very different if it takes you longer to study. But we have to fight against those ideas that there are too many entries, and I leave it at that. I guess my colleague will go back to that topic. So I am referring to acquisition of competencies as life itself. It is broken down in a natural way. Basic, primary education, mid-education. That, well, it is good that they have information, but it is not so good that it is conditioned to a foreseeable employability that may change by the time the kid finishes the university. We have to inform them well, we have to give them some counseling, and of course the interests and the variety of motivations is very important. So I think we should leave it at that, no? Because here we are not nobody's mentioning something that is paramount. What is the risk and the value of the use of social media in the life of the youngsters? And if we talk about that, then we would have to go into the need of providing kids and teenagers with tools, and mainly girls, because they are more vulnerable. They need tools to know how to communicate online, what to do, what not to do. In social media, we also have a chauvinist attitude, and they need information, they need tools, they need counseling, they need preventive measures, and they need measures to solve conflicts, so that everybody, but above all a female field, and also any other differentiation in gender matters, because before there used to be two genders, but now we have a wide variety of genders, and there are many processes of acknowledgement of a sexual identity. And obviously, we have to take all those varieties into account. If this is difficult in the field of direct relationship, face-to-face, imagine online. We need to tell them what to do, what not to do, so that they handle social media in a secure way. So social media is everything for the good and for the bad and for the not so bad. I would not like to insist anymore on this. Maybe later on we have some time for Q&A, and I can well, tell you on the basis of which I am making such arguments or statements. Yes, I agree with you in terms of the gender diversity. This gender diversity provides wealth, generates a variety of mindsets, wider perspectives for the society, for businesses. What can you tell us, Giovanna, from the point of view of your association? What are you doing about gender diversity? Thank you very much. I'd like to thank very much INCIBE for having thought of our association to be present here to share with you experiences. Just give you a different point of view regarding education of boys, but also the adults, because whoever is educating a girl educates a people. If you educate a woman, that lasts throughout the time. So it is very important that women know that technology provides us with a marvelous tool, but we need to know how to use it, the same as a hammer. A friend of mine, for example, a close friend of mine, very well known in this field, Silvia Leal is her name. She used to tell me, Giovanna, think that everything that you enter in social media, it is like if you sign a post at the doorstep. Whatever you do not want to put at the doorstep, never upload it on the social media. On the basis of that, I think it is very important that parents know, and I include myself, how far we can go, what we can do and we cannot do, because we have to watch what kids do. If we do not show any interest, because it is very complicated to follow them up, then we start to create a digital divide that becomes larger and larger. So we have to leave that comfort area behind, make an effort, and through associations, we need to attract these women. And we have to tell them it is important for the sake of your kids and your own safety and security. As for what has been said here, we need some changes, STEM careers, business quotas, gender observatories, salaries, but also we need a structural shift. We need to make efforts, invest efforts, women, and we need to get ready and get some training and get educated. I am taken aback because lately I have attended some fora and congresses, and the president of Wallapop is a woman, Rastriator is a woman. There are many, many CEOs who are females, who are women. However, and what happens is that there is no visibility of women. So in my opinion, it is very important to create references, because then you can go to schools and say, well, you are 14 years of age or 15, you want to get some guidance regarding what? Well, maybe you should know that this woman is the director of Huawei or whatever. And they will see women who are leading some of the sectors. Somebody said that he was Google evangelizer. Those are new jobs, new professions that are coming up. And we don't know that they exist. So it is important in schools, but it's also important that fathers and mothers are well trained, and that we know that there is the Internet of the Things, robotics, and so forth. A friend of mine used to tell me that she has a fridge connected, and I don't know, she had made an order because they had hacked it. I cannot even think that my fridge can make an order when my fridge is normal, really. But a hacker fridge? Oh my gosh. My hair stands out, really, and then another thing comes along, fear. Why am I going to get into that mess? Because then my fridge will make the order, imagine. So from the associations needs to train ourselves as well. Solutions. I'd like to share some of them with you. For example, greater involvement of policy makers. In terms of equality, politicians, well, they just ignore it, really. So I'd like to make a call, because if policymakers do not get involved, you know what happened to me last Thursday, right? I will answer you later on. There is no fund investment. So all the ideas, all creativity you may have is great, but if we do not have any money, you cannot solve problems. And that's why we need politicians on our side. We also need legislative changes. Cyber sexism, for example, when they harass you, or the cyber mobbing. I like to say that in France there is a center that is called Educación that publishes studies on cyber sexism. So I like that if you commission such a study, This should be connected to the Institute for Women in Spain, because when we want, or any association wants to know about the situation here or there, we go to the Institute for Women because they have all the statistics. But they are very complicated to understand. I already told our beloved Lucia Verón, because she has already told me that they are going to change the website. I think it is important to mention it. And we also have to promote and strengthen training in equality. There is a foundation called Junior Achievement. It is an international foundation. They have a project called Get Guidance. So they go to schools and they say, you should know you can do this, you can do that. And they insist a lot. And they also talk to parents. Because if my mom is a nurse, for example, where the girl usually tends to study nursing, no? They copy roles. So that's why it is so important to be informed. Say, well, my father is a nurse, but I want to be Google nerdy, for example. Commitments by the businesses, it is also important. For example, now administration is launching a blind curriculum, but many companies do not want to accept it. So it is important to force companies to accept the blind curriculum. Something I would like is to set up networks to collaborate with women associations. I just attended a workshop some days ago, this morning, sorry, and I was commenting on the same thing, the need for references. So with one person from the university, we said, okay, well, let's create a website to include female references in terms of cybersecurity, etc., etc., and then visibility of women. If we are not visible, it's worthless. When I was invited to this forum, I said, I have no idea about these topics. No, we want you to tell us that you have no idea and the problems you encounter when transferring all this knowledge to your partners. And you have to be here I am. And finally, I'd like to mention an agreement with the media, no? Some peace agreement, so to speak. The Women Forum has an agreement, and when we organize an event on women, they are always there. In Spain, 29% of women only 29% of times women are present in the media, and usually to talk about gender violence or to say that they have been killed by partners, whatever. So I'd like the media to commit themselves to talk about successful women, leading women, presidents of this or that organization. When I was younger, Arantxa Sánchez Vicario came out to the fore and everybody wanted to be a tennis player. Now we have a wonderful badminton player and everybody wants to play badminton. So we need women to be taken out to the fore. Sorry, we have just lost sound. We lost the sound. We don't know why. Thank you. I'm just going to say something in my role as a politician. I say, obviously, everything we do is little in terms of equality, not only equality in businesses, but equality, discrimination matters, etc. Economically, it is very important. And the last budgets, the items have increased for the mothers that have been harassed or subject to harassment. No? Digital Agenda also have a plan for social inclusion, employability, also accompanied by funding. So I'm not going to go into depth, but I fully agree with you that we have to do much more than that. Some things are being done, but it's not enough, of course, and everything will be in favor of equality. Right now, we do not have a plan for equality. Well, we're working on that. We're just negotiating right now. If you agree, then now it is time for the floor to ask questions, or if you want to exchange some opinions, there are some other questions there. As we are talking about parents and educators, what is the limit between observance and education of kids in cyber world and the right they have towards their intimacy and privacy? Because if you go a little bit beyond the threshold, you may be committing a crime. If you are too short, you may not fulfilling objectives. Where is the limit? And what measures could be taken if those measures are not implemented? Fernando? It is obvious that it is a shared liability or responsibility. Families and schools have to share responsibility. Education system is a subsidiary in terms of that responsibility. Families have to do their work and we have to do our own job. Mainly internet poses scenarios 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So I think contemporary parents have to face a very complex situation we did not have to face in the past. Well, but right now there are many guidelines, handbooks. Many entities are trying to educate parents in terms of social media. I have worked a little bit on the fundamental rights of minors, privacy, but many conflicts have come up in this sense. In the school scenario, we need safe environment. We cannot just neglect how important security is. We all have security protocols in our schools, but that works much better for face-to-face harassment or mobbing. Cyber mobbing is a bit more concerning, and yet there are more doubts than solutions, but I don't see great conflict between parents and education system in this scenario, I mean. Hello, good afternoon. I'd like to ask a question. We are talking about education, but I think that we have to deepen in a little bit more, because women say that we do not access technical degrees, but maybe could it not be that education system is made for and by men, but education system has never been adapted to our competencies, our learning methodologies, and that's why we fail? Because I think nobody has studied that. If you allow me, before you talk, you take the floor. I am member of Education Subcommission, an agreement for education or convention for education, and some of the speakers that have come to the subcommission, the president of the Mathematics Academy talked about some female mathematics Olympic Games. May sound like chauvinist, no, but it is just the opposite, because they are trying to promote that subject. Also, there are female camps for future female engineers. So you're right, something is happening. And girls do not feel attracted by those technical subjects. Well, as the regional minister said, it is true, the failure is generalized, not only in Spain. And women do not feel, because for them it is more problematic, that they feel much more pressure. And now they are in a system that is not favorable. Contents have been made for and by men. We women have gone into the education system, but the perspective, approach, methodology has not changed, or the way we access information. So I think that we have been allowed to go in, but the system has not changed so that we'll feel comfortable. And it's not because we're worse or better. We're just different, you know what I mean? And our way to access information maybe is different, and maybe that is where the failure lies, no, or the reason for failure. Well, let's see. I think the situation is a bit more complicated. I was saying we are facing bias and stereotypes which are mental labyrinths, so to speak. You say that the system has been made for and by men, but why in medicine it is working so well? And now there are more women there, and they are doing very well. There is no formal obstacle that prevents a woman from entering those studies. From primary school, the woman can choose the same as a man. This is a bit more complex, really. The problem is, what does that girl have in her mind so that she decides not to go for a technical degree? In Castilla and León, if we say the girls who do some vocational training studies, they will have a job, however, they do not pick it up. We need counselors. They need guidance. I am not present at all the counseling talks. What's happening there? We don't know. Okay, I will try to add something to that regarding the second question. There has been an applause because, of course, there are many unfair situations. What I would like to mention, if you allow me, is that the intellectual advance of women is illustrating that they are competent enough and even better organized to be successful even in those studies that have been previously designed for men. However, I think that the problem may lie not only in training. Going back to guidance or counseling, when we do intelligence study in a classroom with girls and boys, the intelligence factor is not distributed by gender. The verbal factor of intelligence is usually rooted more in women than men. Reasoning factor is equally broken down. The one that is not broken down or equally broken down, it is the mechanical factor or functional factor, and I'll explain myself. There is a variation regarding correction of intelligence texts. There are general intelligence tests and others that are factorial. So women are as intelligent as men, and men as intelligent as women. There are aspects of applied intelligence that, due to stimulation of children, may change. Mechanical and spatial reasoning is different. They need another factor of gender to get adequate qualification. But that is not attributed to intelligence, but rather the system they have been subject to during childhood, no? In terms of games, etc., etc. So, what we should do is to try to slightly change or adapt the type of studies. However, women in science schools or faculties or universities or even industrial subjects, if you allow me, are really doing much better than men. The other aspect, he, the person who asked the question, is a witness as a university professor and knows that boys and girls are not locating or placing a limit or a barrier. The problem lies in the acceptance in terms of employment. The President of Associations has shared some successful examples of women, no? And it is also important that the family abandons those stereotypes, because sometimes there is a lot of chauvinism in the household, and that is concerning, because there is a male conditioning towards the submission of women since they are teenagers, by means of seduction or by means of the behavior of men trying to subject women. So if there is no good family education and parents do not educate properly, then that will be a scourge throughout the years. Why? Because we have not shown them how to have their own criteria, whether you are a male or a female, because nobody should be manipulated. But as women are more vulnerable because of tradition, or boys even are also vulnerable because are weaker, maybe. Society, family have to be brave and solve the conflicts. Probably, Octavio, you have been told that you are the only father that obliges them to come home earlier than anybody. So, as the regional minister said, you have to start working at home and you have to be brave and give them the tools. Because the worst thing is when a person tries to dominate the other. We have to promote and strengthen autonomy, own criteria, and give them tools enough to oppose to all kind of submission and surpass all obstacles. Society has to accompany women, not only policymakers, yes, as well, but everybody, school, family, etc., because otherwise the revolution will never occur. We do not have to shoot bullets, but rather provide principles and tools to try to turn the tables round. This is all on the basis of what I thought we were going to be tackling, cyberbullying through the social media.
So we are running out of time. We're running late. I think the program, yes, it's very busy, but I'd like anyone in the audience to make more questions. Good afternoon. I am a math teacher at a school with children with different ethnicities. My name is Monse. Oh, sorry, Monse. So I don't know who should be summoned to the schools if we want to tackle the problem between gender and cybersecurity problem. Probably someone else in this country, because boys and girls know exactly what is going on when a girl that is between 11 and 16 sometimes thinks that she'd like to get married and have children. And the professions you are describing are against the role of having children and getting married, especially for some ethnicities, because their parents have not received any training. And the parents think that their girls will be happier if they receive education and training, but then they want to get married and have children. And they're not silly girls, because when they are 11, when they are between 11 and 15 years old, they know what the world is expecting from them. Boys don't have that pressure, but the girls know, and they wonder why they have to study. Why should I study? Then they will abandon school because they think it's been of no use for them, if what they want is to be happy and getting married and having children. And that's why they choose, for example, to study hairdressing, or something that it's okay. They might enable them to get a job. And then, well, if they don't get a job, it's fine because they haven't spent much money or invested much time, because in the end they want to be happy and get married and have children. And they know that if they study an engineering career, they won't be able to have a balanced work life. So thank you. I'd like to stress the question I was talking about with you, Maria Luisa, earlier, and what the regional minister was talking about, the micro-machisms or the micro-chauvinisms that leave these footprints, to the extent that nobody thinks it's weird in a company to talk about flexibilization measures for women, or, for example, giving them time for their personal lives and before they go back to work. So that lack of responsibility, because we are conveying these micro-chauvinisms since we are little. Yes, I will very quickly say that, first of all, it is true that we need awareness-raising policies and equality policies in which women are not given fewer opportunities because they will get pregnant or because they will take maternity leave, because this, of course, is harmful for the society at the short term, but also on the long term for the labor career of those women. And secondly, I am afraid, I am fearful, I'm frightened, because I have three small girls. And luckily for me, it hasn't been a handicap for me in my professional career. It is true that, unluckily and unfortunately, this is not the most common case. I am an exception. But I have an anecdote to tell. When my girls see someone in the elevator, and when they see women, my neighbors, they are surprised to see them. And they ask me, but why are they there? Because what they are used to is to seeing their mother, myself, traveling abroad or working. Of course, they have a family support, and I have a family support, and it is important. So they are astonished to see women at home. So I think this is a meritocracy system. Result achievement, outcome achievement, merits, effort, hard work. This is really what we need to tell to our children, because what we are seeing here, what we are saying here, if it's not heard by them, it's of no use. This is a message we have to disseminate. Our responsibility is to help our children understand it and to keep it as a key value: merit, hard work, and effort. This is what we will give to our children as an inheritance. Because now, of course, there is a law of quotas. There is a bill of quotas that will grant you access but not permanence into the senior positions. Well, we have to stop here. Thank you for giving us the occasion to talk about this important and relevant topic. We are at your disposal, but we cannot continue now with this roundtable because the rest of the conference has to go on. Thank you.